Hi, I'm Jim Knotts, President and CEO of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Fund. Welcome to today's virtual reading of the names. 2022 marks the 40th anniversary of the dedication of the Vietnam Veterans Memorial in Washington, D.C. As part of our commemoration, we'll host an in-person reading of the names at the wall from November 7th through 10th, 2022, when all 58,281 names on the wall will be read aloud. In the lead up to that event, we'll be reading names each day online while sharing the photos of these heroes. For our daily virtual reading, the names of the service members will be read by month and day of death between the years 1956 and 1975 in alphabetical order for the given day. We apologize in advance for any mispronunciations. Know that our readers are doing their best to honor these service members. We hope you'll listen and watch each day and share with others as we remember and honor those who gave their lives during the Vietnam War.
Luis Angel Alanis, Roger Dwayne Alberts, William Joseph Anderson, Kenneth Arvid Arvidsson, Glenn Edward Asmussen, Jack Allen Beard, Clifford Doyle Beeler, Michael Wayne Berkery, Robert Edward Bernhardt, Bruce Bryant Bernstein, John Francis Bibby, Larry J. Blankenship, William Eugene Boehm, Jack Crosby Bogard, Arthur Ray Bollinger, James Edward Bostock, James Bradley, Joseph Martin Brady, Dale Brandenburg, Norris Lee Brendan, Larry Wayne Brown, Joseph Scott Burgett, John Joseph Burke, Walter Francis Burke, Willard Harley Burkhart, Ulysses G. Burroughs, Clifton Eugene Callahan, Robert Wayne Campbell, Gary Lynn Campen, Raul Candelaria, Adam Cantu, Eugene Nathaniel Chesley, James Lester Clark, Larry Vernal Claspill, Louis John Cleaver, Kenneth William Coates, Norman Otis Copeland, Rembert Crawford, Jr., Peter Richard Cressman, Raymond Nelson Curley, M. L. Curry, David D. Davenport, Jr., Anthony DiGirolamo, Jr., Leonard Richard Demko, Dale Lee DeWolf, Michael DiPasquantonio, Timothy John Deneen, James Vernon Dorsey, Jr., Leon Normand Doucette, Robert Raymond Ecker, Robert John Edgar, James Thomas Edmonds, Robert James Elgard, James Leonard Francisco, Solomon Huey Godwin, Wayne Leonard Golan, Ray Lynn Good, Philip Benjamin Goodwin, Alvin Gordon Jr., Rodney Herschel Gott, Lawrence Gary Grossi, Alan Joseph Green, Tony Lee Griffith, Gary Robert Haley,
Ted B. Hollenbeck, Wayne Douglas Hamill, Robert Wayne Hamlin, Timothy Rowley Hammond, Timothy McKay Harrington, Wilton Neal Hatton, George Ernest Hayward, Joseph Edward Hyman, Jerry Irvin Helland, William Colqueth Hicks, Jr., Schuler Adolph Hoffman, James Richard Holt, Alan Melvin Hutchinson, William Eugene Jackson, Kenneth Edward Jackson, John Hurston Jackson, William Thomas Jarvis, David Charles Johnson, Gerald James Johnson, Gary Morgan Johnson, Joseph Barry Jones, George Lee Kellum, Lester Wilson Kimball, Lee Ray King, Chester John Kmitt, Harold Andrew Cram Jr., Richard Lorraine Kuntz, Tyrone Francis Lamiddy, Michael S. Lane, Mark Mitchell Langston, Gerald Lee Larson, Thomas William Laughlin, John Edward Lear, Paul Eric Lees, Henry Robert Lopez, Michael Eyre Lowry, James Allen Lowry, Homer Morgan Lynn Jr., Christopher Edwin Lyon, James Michael Lyon, David Michael Maybury, Benjamin Maldonado Aguilar, Jerry Douglas Mallory, Salvatore Mancuso, Thomas Andrew Marchute, Doc Henry Marshall, Ralph Martin, Joseph Andrew Madjeff, Owen Ted McCandless, Robert William McCluskey, Dan Daly McConaughey, James Frank McElia, John Arthur McIntosh, Clarence Leon McNeil, James Ronald McNish, Ronald Leroy Means, Todd Michael Melton, Melvin Glenn Moffett, Joseph Anthony Molletier, Bruce William Monska, Jeffrey Paul Morley, Clenzel Morris, Jimmy Earl Mumford, Gregory Allen Mazalski,
Paul Jr. Myers, Fred Allen Neubauer, Clifton Curtis Newcomb, Harry Tillman Niggle, Thomas Patrick Noonan Jr., John Edward Nordell Jr., Larry Wayne Norgard, Charles Robert Osteen, Robert Eugene Olson, Carl John Ornelas, Theodore Arthur Papke, Ronald Dale Pate, James Lee Paul, James Richard Paul, Gerald F. Pelsman, Kenneth Merrill Perry, Arthur Lindsay Poole, Robert Richard Porteous, William Todd Potter, David Edgar Price Jr., James Earl Prideaux, Severo James Prim III, William Jackie Pryor, Raymond Dean Regier, Russell Edward Rynell, Martin Luther Rimson, Julian Cabral Rivera, Kenneth David Roberts, Dewey Dolan Ruiz Jr., Daniel Savage, Darrell Gene Scalf, Anthony John Schneller Jr., James Howard Scott, Alton Browning Sebastian, William Dean Selders, David Albert Semler, Charles J. Sheehan III, James Dallas Shelton, Hugh Leslie Sherburne, William Smith, Alan Ray Smith, Robert Eugene Smith, Vernon Parr Smith, John Wayne Spafford, Bernard John Sparenberg, Anthony Joseph Spirito Jr., Ira James Spittler III, George Ross Spitz, Louis Franklin Staples, Richard C. Stevenson, Charles Robert Stevenson, James Edward Stover, Stephen John Straub, Willie Somerville Jr., Paul Eugene Swigert Jr., Carl Joseph Tanzola Jr., Ernest Vernon Taylor, Wesley George Thurston, Franklin Godfrey Todd, Robert Torres, Glenn Ross Urquhart Jr., Carlos Valenzuela, Enrique Vasquez, William Edward West, Edwin Rudolph Wiersba, Carl Mitchell Wood, Larry Albert Woodburn, Stanley Kamaki Woodward, Dana Lawrence Zaleski,